Good evening and welcome to the November 21st, 2024 meeting of the Bloomington Planning Commission. I am officially calling our meeting to order. The Planning Commission is made up of 7 members. We have 7 this evening. Each member volunteers their time and is a Bloomington resident. Members are appointed by the City Council. The Planning Commission is advisory to the City Council. For most items, the Commission makes recommendations and the City Council has the final decision-making authority. There are certain applications that the Planning Commission can approve or deny on its own. We have one item with a public hearing this evening, which will also be heard at City Council. For each item this evening, there will be a staff report, then a chance for the applicant to present, then a chance for any member of the public to provide testimony, and then the Commission will close the public hearing and discuss the item before the action is taken. Our first order of business tonight is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, first item this evening is a public hearing. It is a city code amendment for park dedication and platting standards. And Planning Supervisor Nick Johnson, you have the staff report.
Thank you, Chair Albrecht. Can all of you see my slides okay? Okay. Forgiveness to the, apologies to the crew that was here last meeting. This is a little bit of duplicated materials, but for the purpose of the public hearing and the public record, I do need to go through some of these finer points again. So we'll try and provide a good snapshot of what this ordinance does, and but maybe not jump into as much of the legal depth as we did last time with the city attorney. They are available for questions if need be. So just a little background about this project. So the park dedication study was an adopted project as part of the 2024 Planning Commission work plan. The reason that it was added to the work plan is that there was some case law at the Minnesota State Supreme Court pertaining to park dedication standards. The case that went to the court was Poos versus City of Burnsville. Poos was a private party who challenged the City of Burnsville's park dedication requirements related to a development in Burnsville. It followed through the court proceeding process, and ultimately the state Supreme Court affirmed the City of Burnsville's right to require the park dedication fees. It did make a few findings. I'll just kind of do the broad strokes of it, and again, Kevin Toskey's available if there's questions. But first, Minnesota's park dedication statutes incorporates the requirements of Nolan and Dolan. So those are fundamental legal land use cases that deal with the essential nexus and the proportionality of basically government impact fee. And that's what provides the framework for park dedication. It also stated that municipalities must evaluate park dedication conditions for those two tests. And then third, that cities may use formulas to determine the appropriate amount of park dedication land or fees, but they must justify their formula with studies or other evidence showing the need for the reasonable parkland. So those are the broad strokes of it. Following this case, the legal department felt it was prudent to evaluate the city's park dedication standards to make sure that they are in alignment with the findings of this case. And the broad picture of it is that, yes, we do feel that Bloomington's system is durable and effective, but did want to polish it up with a couple of the elements that were in the findings of the case. One point I want to make about the nature of this project is that many of the projects that we bring before you, particularly these long-range planning projects, you're serving more in a legislative function, where these are really discretionary decisions that the city is making. I would put this project more in the mandatory bucket as opposed to discretionary. And the reason being is that what is included in the ordinance, in addition to the changes to park dedication, but some other changes that have to do with just making sure that our subdivision ordinance, Chapter 22, is consistent with state statute. There's a couple things in our ordinance that needed to be updated to be truly consistent. So most of the elements are mandatory. There are a few discretionary items, and I'll point that out as I go along here. And then just related to the discretionary elements, just once we open a chapter of the city code, it's a good opportunity for us as a city staff to take a look at all the elements so that, something doesn't come up just 1 year from now or something like that, that we failed to take this opportunity. So just getting to our general process of what we're putting before you here. Oopsie, that's not what I meant to do. Sorry, 1 second. Just in terms of a general process, so the July through September of this year, we went through internal staff research and drafting. This project involved a little bit more of a cross-disciplinary team than most of our projects. We had representatives from planning, legal, parks and recreation, finance, engineering, and the city surveyor and their staff. So they actually are the ones who deal with the platting process as it goes through. So a wide-scale team and fun and helpful to work with, kind of get that expertise from many different areas. As I mentioned on last meeting on November 7th, we held a study session. We didn't want to kind of have a preview of this before we got into a public hearing setting, so we presented that to you. Tonight is the scheduled public hearing, and should you take action on the item tonight, we anticipate it will be before the City Council at a public hearing on December 16th. So hopefully wrapped up by the end of the year. Just more of a reminder, and maybe more for the members who weren't here. So the Bloomington Park dedication process, as I said, is authorized under state law. We do, similar to most cities, we do offer a land or a fee option. Bloomington being a mostly built-out city, except for in a few precise locations, Bloomington is not seeking a lot more park land. We typically are collecting the fee to contribute towards capital improvements to the park system. So whether it be in equipment or other improvements to our, did I lose the, oh, maybe not, sorry. So we're typically collecting the fee to contribute to those capital improvements. Bloomington's system is a little bit different than some cities in that we offer two different pathways, and we give the development the option of the lesser of. And so we do a percentage of pre-development land value, which is probably the more common approach that cities take. They might not have the exact same percentage that we require. But basically, including Burnsville, most cities are using a pre-percentage or pre-development land value calculation to determine what the fee is. Bloomington also offers this proportional value calculation, and the way that we do that, and this is probably more often the case in commercial and industrial development, is we're trying to determine what the potential impacts of the new development are with respect to the number of employees or amount of activity that gets generated. The Bloomington, this proportional share calculation is based on an assumption of 90-10 ratio between residential use of our parks versus all the people who come for commercial or industrial use of the park. So that's another part of key feature of our system and methodology. So that's the general basics of it. In terms of the mechanics, the developer or the applicant has to pay the fee prior to the plat being recorded at the county, which is a requirement for the building permit. So that's when that fee is collected. The main thing I'll say just about the updates to the ordinance that had to do with sharpening or strengthening Bloomington's park dedication provisions really has to do with our findings and purpose statement. One of the findings of the Poos versus Burnsville case was that Burnsville's fee was defensible because it was tied directly back to a need identified in their comprehensive plan. So in the case of Bloomington, we have both the comprehensive plan, which is mostly the community facilities element, but we also have the park system master plan, which was recently adopted in 2021. So the city has done this work. Better to just directly reference it in our ordinance, that those are the documents that collectively serve as the city's parks and open space plan. So getting to the summary of the ordinance itself, so I mentioned the finding and purpose statement. The ordinance also includes clarifications around how we define development employees, and we just wanted to clarify that we do that proportionally. If you have an office and a warehouse or manufacturing building, you're not just paying the fee associated with one of those uses, but we actually break it out just like we would with parking, for example. So we're just trying to be as precise and fair as possible. Park dedication for multi-phase developments. This is really, in our view, this is one of those discretionary items wherein previously some of you longer tenured members, and actually I think there was one recently, so maybe everyone has seen a platting variance come through to defer park dedication payment for future phases. In our view, that's not the best process to do that because variances have very specific findings. So we wanted to add some language to allow for multi-phase developments to do so by condition and through a development agreement that they record with the city. We also are proposing a new lot line adjustment and lot consolidation process. And so this is in that bucket of just being in better alignment with state statute. State statute does not require platting for lot line adjustments or consolidations. And so just clarifying that in our code and offering that new application process. We did tweak a few definitions in our subdivision ordinance. And then this is in the discretionary bucket. We did suggest 2 exceptions to the platting requirements. So platting is a requirement if you're on an unplatted lot to get a building permit effectively for any significant development. If you're not a platted lot, you have to go through that process. We do have some exceptions, however. One of those is for government and park facilities. One thing that we would suggest adding is that public schools, K-12 schools, also be eligible for that exception. The reason being they're typically on very large properties, and many of them are unplatted because they were built before the city's subdivision ordinance had its current requirements. And so it's very costly with limited public benefit to thinking about it as a public institution to require that for them. And then the other piece of it too is that you can't get a building permit for structures on outlots, but there are some limited exceptions to that. We just wanted to clarify that on outlots of plats, you can install stormwater management facilities, and sometimes those carry with them retaining walls. And technically under the building code, if they're over 4 feet in height, those are structures. So just it's kind of something of an interpretation that we were making previously that we just wanted clear in the code that is a permitted situation. So staff does recommend approval of this ordinance. I'm happy to take any questions you might have, but yeah, hopefully it provided a good summary.
Thank you. Questions for staff? All right, seeing none, the city is the applicant for this item. So I will go ahead and open the public hearing. If anyone in the chambers wish to testify on this item, you can come up, sign in. And Mr. Johnson, do we have anyone online?
Chair Albrecht, all the members online in the meeting are staff.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brooks. Appreciate that. I'll give it a second if anyone wants to testify on this item. All right, looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to close the public hearing and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Discussion. Commissioner McGovern.
I think this is city's due diligence to assure that it meets the state statute requirements and the city code. So I greatly appreciate the work that is put into it.
I'll go ahead and echo that. I think it's important to keep on top of what's happening in the legal environment, and therefore making sure that the city of Bloomington doesn't get sideways, and that never is a good thing. So appreciative to the staff for their work on this. All right, looking for a motion. Commissioner Cookton.
Madam Chair, I move to recommend approval of the Park Dedication and Platting Standards Ordinance, thereby amending Chapters 15, 22, and Appendix A of the City Code.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. All right, thank you. Item 2 is a study item. It is our regular item that we have on our agenda, the Planning Commission Policy and Issue Update. Planning Supervisor Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Albrecht. So just a heads up about upcoming meetings. We were initially planning to present our first draft of the Planning Commission work plan at our next meeting, but I think we will delay that until December 19th. And so the next meeting would be canceled, just as it affects your calendars. And then the next meeting on December 19th, and that's the last Planning Commission meeting of the year. We have 2 items scheduled, both study items. We have a study item on the small business codes and processes project. So that involves a review of our refuse and recycling standards, odor control, exterior building materials, grease interceptors. There's a wide variety of different kind of topics involved in that project. Some off-street parking considerations. So we'll have a study item with that presented by myself and Dakota Kroll. And then the second item would be the presentation of the staff recommendation on the 2025 Planning Commission work plan. So certainly a good opportunity for discussion and suggestions on that one. And I would say in advance of that packet, if you have any questions or suggestions for staff that'd be helpful to think about in advance of the meeting, don't hesitate to reach out to us and can help answer any questions you might have. But that's what's planned for December 19th, and I believe Glenn distributed the meeting calendar for next year, so hopefully you all received that, but that's the bulk of my updates.
Excellent, thank you. Any items for discussion amongst the commissioner? Commissioner Issa.
I just want to confirm, when is the HRA joint meeting date?
Thank you.
Good question. I believe it's the 17th of December.
Chair Albrecht, that's correct. Thank you for asking that question, Commissioner Issa. If I forgot to mention that, forgive me. We do have a scheduled joint meeting with the HRA on December the 17th. It'll be held in the chambers. And on the main topic on that meeting will be co-living and SRO standards. We're going to present a draft concept ordinance changes to you at that meeting and get your feedback. I think there'll also just generally be opportunity for dialogue with the HRA board, just in terms of the two bodies to share their questions or vision around housing in Bloomington and where we're at right now. So thank you for that question.
Any other items for discussion? All right. Seeing none, that will be the close of our November 21st, 2024 meeting of the Bloomington Planning Commission. Thank you all. Have a good night.